Welcome to my Biden versus DeSantis spring predictions, so let's begin. And there we go. So to start off with DeSantis' home state of Florida, I do think it would go barely into the safe category. I think his home state advantage would of course help him, and because he's the governor of the state, it would be enough to make Florida around 12% or more for the GOP, while for Colorado it still is a safe state for the Democrats. I still think it would trend to the left, although it would barely be. Maybe it's similar to 2020, probably like 12% to 14%. Yeah, around that margin probably. So not a big difference there. And if you see, Maine at large actually does go into the safe category. I do reckon that Maine at large barely be safe D for Biden. DeSantis would not do as well in the 2nd district, and this would mean that Biden wins here by at least 12% in Maine at large. And that's it for the safe states. So for the first likely state, we gotta talk about New Jersey. I think New Jersey, you've heard this from me a couple of times, but high Italian American population, I think that'd be enough for DeSantis to drop off the margin from 2020 down to below 12% in 2024. So let's go now to New Mexico. Why not? So New Mexico, if DeSantis is the nominee in 2024, I really want to see how he does with Hispanics outside of Florida, because Florida Hispanics are mostly Cubans and anti-socialists, while New Mexico, they're more Mexican Americans, so that'll be interesting to see how he does with them. I think New Mexico does drop off from 2020, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, probably, and I think that Biden still wins here by a likely margin, but the margin does drop off from 2020 down to 8 to 10%. And now for a Trumpy state, for Iowa, I'm not sure how Iowa could go, because I do see it trending to the right, almost certainly in 2024. It wouldn't be surprising if just 2016 2.0, with almost it being 9.5%. But DeSantis will lack in the Rust Belt for sure. And I'm guessing it would be something like 7 to 9% win for DeSantis here, just because of how conservative and how much the state is trending to the right. I do have it still as likely R. And for another likely state, this time around for Minnesota. So DeSantis, I'm not sure how he would do in a state like Minnesota. That does, rely more on the big city in the middle, being Minneapolis. I'm not sure. It could be, it wouldn't be surprising if it barely votes, to the left of, or to the right of 2020, or left, who knows what could happen. But I still think DeSantis will not do as well in the Rust Belt, so that's why I'm gonna say it's Biden win here by 6.5% to 8.5%. I think it barely votes to the left of 2020 with DeSantis as the nominee, although I'm not too sure about it, so up for debate for sure. Now for Virginia, I think Virginia with DeSantis will drop off from 2020. It wouldn't be 2016, of course, or I should say just certainly. I think 2020 or 2024 in that election would see a drop off between Biden versus Trump, and DeSantis would drop off the margin here too. I'm gonna say like 8 to 10%. The state is trending to the left during Trumpism, but I think with no Trump on the ticket, it would drop below the margin of 2020, of course, so around 9% really. And now for the home state of former President George Bush, we gotta go for Texas. So Texas, during Trumpism, it did swing quite a lot to the left from 2016 and, to 2020, of course. And DeSantis would not do as poorly as Trump did in Texas in both elections, although I do reckon, would it be the same as 2016? I mean, the trends, I think DeSantis does better than Trump 2020, although I'm not sure if he does better than Trump 2016, which is why I have DeSantis winning here by the margin of around 6 to 8%, so yeah. He still does better than Trump, but not as amazing as some people think. And now for another state that is more establishment aligned, That is for Alaska. Alaska back in 2020 was likely R, and there are going to be a lot of factors in 2024, but currently I will say I do have DeSantis appealing more to the moderates and independents in Alaska for sure. He does fit better than Trump does, and that is why I have DeSantis winning here by the margin. Same margin as Texas at the moment, 6 to 8%. I do think DeSantis is a better fit for Alaska than Donald Trump for sure. And back to the Rust Belt. So for Ohio, with DeSantis, he may do better in the suburbs compared to Trump, of course. But the issue for DeSantis will be in the rural areas, the Trumpy rural areas that Trump did very well in, alongside some Obama-Trump voters, and that is the main reason why I almost 100% sure see Ohio dropping off from 2020. I still reckon it would be a likely margin, although lean R wouldn't be too outrageous to think. But I have DeSantis winning Ohio by I think 5% to 7%, so barely a likely R win for DeSantis here. And that's it for the likely states. So as you can see, it's really close still. So let's go to the first lean state, and that would be New Hampshire. New Hampshire's one that could be similar to 2020, and be likely D. That could happen again. I do think DeSantis is a way better fit for New Hampshire than Trump 2020 was, and that is my main reason why I do have DeSantis not losing by the same margin as Trump did in 2020. I think Biden would win here by 4%, so basically 3% to 5%. That would be my margin in this northeastern states. So a better showing by Governor DeSantis in New Hampshire. And for another northeastern state, or I should say district, for Maine, for the second district of Maine, I think DeSantis would do very poorly in this populist county, you could say. Would it be enough to be lean? I do think so. I do think DeSantis would underperform in Maine, but do better in New Hampshire, which is interesting. But he would win. He would still win the second district of Maine for sure. That would be by the margin of 3 to 5%. So could be likely R still, but most likely lean R. And moving on to the more really key states in this election, as you can see right here. For the first one, actually, that some of you may not like, for Michigan, I don't see DeSantis doing good in Michigan. I think that even though this state doesn't have as many powerful rural counties, that would help DeSantis for sure. The major problem for DeSantis will be the working class vote, which in the Rust Belt is gonna go. It's not gonna be as strong for the GOP with DeSantis, aka the Obama-Trump voters are not gonna turn out as much for DeSantis compared to Trump, probably. And that is one of the reasons why I do think Biden would still win here. It wouldn't be likely D. I don't think that right now. I have this as lean D for President Biden by 3 to 5%. I think his incumbency advantage alongside DeSantis, appeal the Rust Belt not being, his highlight, you could say, is why Michigan trends to the left of 2020, which is reasonable. And yeah, for the next one, let's go to Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, basically the second home state of President Biden. In 2020, it barely won to Biden by 1.17% or 1.2%. And now in 2024, with DeSantis lacking appeal in the Rust Belt, alongside, incumbency advantage for President Biden, the economy is also looking better than expected come 2024. It does look like he will win here by a lean margin. The margin will be the same here as well, but I mean the classification. I think the margin here will be 2% to 4%. So as I was saying, there'll be like a 1.8% increase from 2020. So yeah, around like 2% went for Joe Biden here, or I should say 3% went for Joe Biden here. Furthermore, for the 2nd district of Nebraska, I actually do have this. I think it drops off from 2020. It just depends on turnout for sure. That's one of the main variables for the 2nd district of Nebraska. I think it's one of the, you could say, electoral votes that does not go to the left of 2020, of course, and I think Biden wins here by 2 to 4%. I think DeSantis does make, Governor DeSantis does make some gains in the suburbs in Nebraska here, but not enough, and Biden wins there by 3%. Moving on to North Carolina, I think North Carolina, I think he will do better than Trump, for sure. Trump 2020, I'm not sure if he does better than Trump 2016, although it could happen if things go right for him. And I have DeSantis winning North Carolina by 2 to 4%. I think his southern appeal will help him a lot in this section of the country, and he wins here by 3%. And back to the Rust Belt, where for Wisconsin, usually it's within, you know, a tilt margin in most previous elections, except the Obama era, of course. Yeah, and I think DeSantis would be the Republican that does not get it to be within 1%. I think Biden would win here by a lean margin, barely. My margin here would likely be 0.75% at best for DeSantis, and at worst for Biden, while the maximum will be 2.75% for Biden, which is why I do have this technically in the lean margin. So yeah, the incumbency advantage does help Biden quite a lot here, although it could easily flip to tilt, so no worries there. And for the final 3 states, let's go to Georgia. Georgia is really a hard one for me to decide on what the margin would be. I think DeSantis does get very lucky that he does appeal to more college graduates, while also being from the neighboring state of Florida, which is weirdly enough the reason why I do have Georgia. It's between lean and tilt. I do have Georgia going for DeSantis by a lean margin. I think the margin numerically would be 0.5% to 2.5%, so it's not insane if DeSantis barely wins here, but I do think his appeal would really help Georgia Republicans in this section of the country, and a 1.5% win for DeSantis here. And now for the last 2 states, for Nevada and Arizona. I think both of these are going to be the same margin, almost near Tossups. For Nevada, I do think that DeSantis would be able to do better than a lot of Republicans in 2024 Nevada. I'm not sure if he does better than Trump would, but he likely will be able to help the Republicans in the state of Nevada. I think the trends are the main issue for the Democrats here, and someone that isn't Trump would have a decent shot at flipping Nevada, just because I do think the turnout could be lesser for Democrats in this section of the state, and that is why I do have this state flipping in 2024, and this state flips for DeSantis by, God knows, the margin could be 0.5% or just 0.25%, really anywhere between those margins. But yeah, a flip for the GOP here. And now for the last one, for Arizona. It's gonna be really a true toss-up by all means, for sure. I think Arizona will come down to how Trumpy DeSantis tries to be. And I do think he will try to win as best as possible, so he probably goes down and tries to be like Trump. But this all comes down to turnout, how well he does with moderates and independents, which is why I do have this basically as a toss-up. But with the economy getting better, Biden having incumbency advantage, and I think DeSantis would not care as much of Arizona compared to the Rust Belt. Those are my reasons why I do have President Biden winning Arizona barely by 8-tilt margin, same margin as Nevada. So as you can see, President Biden wins with 281 electoral votes, while Governor DeSantis gets 257 electoral votes. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.